Yo, this is Guy, and today I want to tell you a story. So, 3 months before my IELTS exam, my dad said, "Son, you have to sit for the IELTS exam in the next 3 months." And I was like, "Okay." And for days, I didn't do any researches and I didn't practice at all. I didn't study at all for days. And because I was so lazy, I was just using social media all day, all night, right? And I tried to convince myself, you don't have to study. You have been studying English for years. Okay, you have already had enough English lessons. Don't you have any confidence? That's what I was literally telling myself because I didn't want to study. Yeah, I was trying to give reasons as to why I don't need to studies. So, but after about oh, after about 2 weeks, I began to feel I began to feel worried because if I didn't get at least band 7 in the IELTS exam, I had little to no chance of getting scholarships for my universities. So I was beginning to feel a little bit fear, and as time passes, I began to feel more and more burden on my shoulder. I didn't I I had to study, man. I had the urge that I had to study, but I didn't want to study because I was so lazy. So that was my difficulty, yeah, that was my obstacle. So um and as days and days pass, and at that one point I couldn't feel the burden anymore. I just decided to study. Yeah, finally I studied. So I decided to study, but the problem was, even though I decided to study, I didn't really do any practices. Right? I just read the questions and I was like, "Oh, it's not so difficult." Oh, okay. I also watched YouTube channels on how to answer specific questions, right? And I'm like, okay, it's not so difficult. Next, next, next. I didn't do any practices. I was just like that. I was just doing that. And but when I had to do practices at nighttime was when I really did practices, right? So at nighttime when it was time for me to do practices, I was like, oh, I'm so tired today. Let me just do it tomorrow. Okay? And then the next day when tomorrow comes, I'm like, oh, I just did a lot of work today. I just studied a lot today. I just do it the next day. And the next day comes, and the next day, and the next day, and next day, and it doesn't end, right? So after about a week, I noticed that I wasn't doing any practices, and I was beginning to feel more worried because if I didn't get band 7, then I have to take the exam again. And if I had to take the exam again, I would be feeling more nervous. I would not have much confidence anymore, because it would have been twice that the exam questions that I have to study. So the same I have to say study the same I have to study the same subject twice. What's wrong with my tongue? So after that week, I really began studying. Finally, I began studying. So, and then that night was the night that I began to have motivation, and I studied for straight 4 hours, man, 4 hours straight. And then I got momentum, and I began studying. Then I continued studying, for about a week or so, right? For about a week, for about a week or so, and then as to my nature, motivation decreases again. Okay, I think everyone is like that, but I'm not so sure. But it's me, so motivation decreases again. But luckily, I knew that I couldn't stop studying, right? So I just decreased the time to study. At first, I was studying for 4 hours, right? So I decreased the time to 2 hours, 2 hours a day, but I studied every day. And then I was feeling more and more tired, right? I was starting to tell myself to stop studying because I was doing a lot of practices and I was feeling more and more tired and more nervous too because I wasn't feeling much confident, right? So even though I was at the study table at those times, I wasn't really studying anymore after weeks. I was just staring at the wall and my mind is wandering off, right? I was imagining some things. I was imagining about my school and so on, about how I played football and such, right? So it was no use, right? And then what I did was I finally decided to take a rest. Finally, I took a rest, but only for weekends. I took a rest, but only during the weekends. And then on Monday, I decided to study again. And I studied during the weekdays and I rested and during the weekends. And that was my plan, right? And I followed that plan no matter what. And on the day of the exam, I was really calm. I woke up, I kept calm, I was really relaxed, and I just ate chocolate and milk for breakfast, right? And then I went to the exam hall, I took the exam and I came back. That's all. I wasn't nervous. But on fast forward to the result day, right? The result was out. A few minutes before the result was out, I was really nervous that day. In the morning, I woke up so early in the morning, and I was like, I just took my phone and went onto the website, and then I searched for the result. But there was no results yet, right? The result was not out yet. I was so nervous, but and then every 1 to 2 minutes, I would just click refresh, 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 and the result was not still out. And then after about 15 minutes or so, I just decided to put my phone away and watched watch I think I watched Arrow, the Arrow season, right? I watched Arrow. And then my friend, after about 5 minutes, my friend called me and he asked me what band score I got. I was like, I don't know. And then he goes, I got 7. What did you get? And I was like, oh really? Oh, the results are out? Okay, okay, wait, I will check it. And then I was so nervous, my heart was pumping so fast, right? Pounding so fast. And then I took the phone and I checked, clicked refresh, 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 and then I checked. And then I got band 8, right? I was so happy. It was like the happiest day of my life because I wasn't expecting 8. It was so unexpected. So I was really, really happy. I was on top of the world. Okay, anyways. So, it was a big achievement. But during those 3 months, what I learned much more important. Something that was much more important for me. I learned that I was just making excuses. I was destroying myself, right? I was sabotaging myself. I was giving reasons and excuses why I really had time to study for my improvement, right? At nights, usually what I would do was I would just use social media or I would just read other things, right? Just for my hobbies. So instead of doing those, if I took those time and studied what was really necessary for my future, then I would have achieved a lot more, right? So that lesson really taught me a lot, and it really transformed my life. So that's it for today. Enjoy.